Live, and
All
we're
right.
live. Greetings and welcome, everyone. Welcome to the BIZ Info Zone Show. My name is V. Lynn Hawkins, and I'm your host today. You are in the zone where you, the savvy social entrepreneur, can get all of the information, the strategies, the tips, tools to learn, to empower you to express your purpose, plan your next moves, and increase your profits. That's what our goal is, and that's what we hope to deliver to you today. I've got a special guest with me today, Mr. John Aberly, who is, a guru around the thinking of sales. And there's a lot of us who think that sales is a bad word because it's a four-letter word, or it has something to do with you and your business, although it's not something that you necessarily want to do. Well, we're going to shed some light on some myths surrounding selling and take you into what is being done now that has such success that I totally subscribe to because it's built around relationships and relationship selling, which is the secret to enjoying selling more. Now, do you have to be the whole used car salesperson to do this? No. It really is relationship selling versus hard selling. It is the difference between heart selling and head selling. It's relationships selling in a cycle. And our guest today is going to help you to understand what all of that means. How the same activities with a different attitude really take you into different results. So, as CEO of your business, you are the lead salesperson and you set the trend for the sales that your business is going to have. Wouldn't you like to have more sales because you truly know the foundational aspects of relationship selling? Well, today our guest, John Aberly, is here. He's going to share some things with us, and I just want to share some things about him to you, if I can find them. So, here we go. John is an author, a speaker, and a coach, and he's drawing upon over 30 years in sales and marketing and small business management to bring you this information. He's written a book called How Relationship Selling Rewards Small Businesses, and it's currently available in Kindle. And right now, he is finding ways, innovative ways, to take this information to the small business community. And I'm really grateful that he's with us here today. Hi, John, and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Lynn. It's a joy to be here.
Wow.
I'm really excited about your market and your audience.
Well, thank you. I'm excited that you're here with us sharing this valuable information because we all know that sales is a process, right?
Yes.
Just like relationship building is a process. Tell our audience a little bit more about you and a little bit more about how you got on this journey and in this place of sharing this important information about relationship selling to audiences all across the country.
Well, first off, Lynn, I was in the Air Force for 9.5 years, in addition to the fact that I graduated from the Air Force Academy. So when I graduated from there, I had intended to be a career officer. But I found I wasn't enjoying the field that I was in. And when I got out of service, I wanted to go into something that would give me the opportunity to advance up in corporations. I have a Bachelor of Science, but I'm not an engineer. So that ruled out a whole lot of fields that were the way to the top. And I found that sales and marketing was one of the routes to the top. The problem I had was that at the time I was going through training in sales and marketing, very hard sell techniques were most commonly being taught. All kinds of little manipulative closes and ways to control the customer, and I was not comfortable with those. So I had to find my own way. Ironically, today there are a lot of other instructors that teach heart-centered and relationship types of selling. But when I first started out, they weren't available. I didn't find a lot of them. So that's what I had to find, was how to sell successfully with a way that I could live with internally, my own personal ethics. And I've done it very successfully. In fact, I've been a sales leader in virtually every company I've been in. And just before starting my own small business, the company I was with, I sold one contract that was worth $1,030,000 over $1 million in a 30-month period, and several other sales that were in the low six figures and the high six-figure range. So relationship selling really works.
Thanks. When I looked at your bio and saw some of the things that you've done in your career, it really led me on a path of relating to the way sales has been done in the past. Being in commercial real estate, I had a lot of opportunity to be in front of the sales mechanism, and to even have, it be a part of my experience where, these hard sales guys are looking at me closing deals and wondering how it is that I'm doing it, because they know that my tactics, my methods are different than theirs. And, when you take a look at the sales process, I find it amazing that people haven't come to, at a sooner point in time, realize that it is based on the relationship and the rapport that you establish with your potential client. So tell us, how do you start out in that process? We mentioned it's a process. Where do you start?
Well, the first thing actually, I think, is attitude. And you have to realize that customers, prospects, prospective customers, are leery. Okay? If they know you're a salesperson, and this is why so many companies use all kinds of funny titles like sales engineer or account manager or whatever to cover up the fact that they're a salesperson. If customers know you're a salesperson, they expect that you're going to try to sell them something, whether they want it or not, or need it or not. And a lot of salespeople come at sales with the idea of, you have my money in your wallet and I'm going to get it from you. A relationship salesperson comes at it from the viewpoint of, I want to build a relationship with you and see how it is that I can help you accomplish what you need to be done with the products and services I have. And that big contract I told you was with EDS in the border area of Texas and Mexico. And I was competing with people in El Paso. I was down in McAllen, Texas, which was about 12 hours away by car from El Paso. And I was competing with people in El Paso. Now, I did have an edge in that we were doing service down in McAllen area for another group of EDS people. But the way the sale was made was by listening to what they wanted, asking questions, finding out what their challenges were, and then coming back to them with proposals that met what they were asking for. Now, one of my other sales, when I was finally based in El Paso, was another major account up there. And it was really fascinating because after first several meetings with the client, he finally acted like he realized I was there to help him. And so he said to me, here's what I need from you to get the purchase order. So there wasn't a close in the traditional sense, he told me what he needed. I delivered what he needed, and I got the PO. It was that simple, but it came about because the client realized I was there for him. I wasn't trying to cram something down his throat.
I think that is really key. And just to kind of preface this, you will on occasion see me doing this whole card thing because I think it's important for people to really get what it is that you're talking about and to shift attitude, to really set the right expectations that you're there to help, you're there to serve, is what relationship selling is all about. Because it takes the whole sell thing out and makes you more of a provider, right? And I
Yes.
really like the thought of that. And you mentioned that.
Become a partner.
Yes.
Impression. There's big.
John, you're breaking up just a little. You're coming in and out. I'm having a hard time hearing you. Try again. Oh, now you're frozen. Well, while we're trying to give John an opportunity to join us back in technology land here, I just want to add a little more to this thought of partnership that John brought up. And, you know, when you talk about partnership, you're talking about contribution. You're talking about having an attitude of how can I contribute, which means how can I help? And it is in that relationship building that you not only establish the connection that allows you to move forward into understanding what your potential client needs, but in understanding how you can. There you are. Okay. Well, just let me finish this thought because it's key to, I think, bringing you into the next conversation.
Thank you.
And that is about the expectation.
I've got a little syrup.
You're having that attitude of service and helping and reestablishing the expectations, bringing in more realistic expectations. And the expectation being set is that you first, in order to know how to help someone, you first have to know what their needs are. And John had mentioned to me at some point that there were some basic sales techniques that he always liked to share as it related to the beginning stages of establishing rapport and having this attitude of service and setting those expectations. John, if you can, share with us a little bit more about those basic sales techniques.
Thank you, Lynn. I will. The first thing in building a relationship is to listen. And that's an interesting thing. You listen first, you ask questions, and in order to start any sales presentation, you have to have an idea of what their potential needs are. And that usually comes from other customers of your company or other customers of yours who are similar, and you've got a profile in mind of who your ideal customer is. So you've got something to talk about. And when you begin the conversation, you can ask them if they're experiencing this particular kind of challenge. And the important thing in relationship selling is that you actually do listen to the answers. When I was first starting in sales, the interesting thing was that it was kind of, you would ask a question and then part of you is waiting for them to shut up so you can talk again. And in a relationship selling, you actually listen, and when you hear them say something, you probe deeper. You ask another question about that answer, and you go deeper until you really have an understanding of what it actually is that they need and how they perceive their need. Um, and then I'm going to caution you that you may, as a professional and the expert in your field, know what they really need even more. But until they are comfortable that you're going to deliver what they know they need, they're not ready to listen to something else. Does that make sense from your experience?
It does. It makes a lot of sense. It actually supports um, two of the things that I do in a discovery session. Is I'm trying to find out what someone is in need of. I mean, it's obvious that there's a connection. I have possibly what it is that they need, or we wouldn't be talking. But then it gives
Right.
the opportunity to really find out what their needs are. And the deeper questions that you talk about sometimes might lead you to understand how they got into a particular situation or how a certain challenge actually showed up for them, or even more importantly, what ideas they have themselves as to how things might be able to get corrected. And I think that's one of the key things because you mentioned listening to what it is that they're talking about, probing a little more deeply, allows you the opportunity to hear what they might be thinking are the solutions to their problems. And until you know what they're thinking, you may be offering something that they are not, it's not going to sit well with them. They're
Yes,
not ready for.
right. And in point of fact, here's an interesting thing. If you're let's say you're a stranger, this is your first time with that prospect, they're not going to reveal everything to you immediately. They want to know they can trust you. So they may test you with something that is a superficial problem. Okay, it's a problem, but it's not the thing that's going to motivate them to action. And that's why you've got to ask further questions. One other thing that came to mind as you were recapping what I'd said is that when I started out in sales, sales trainers would say when you ask a closing question, and the closing question is one that expects the customer to make a buying decision, right? When you ask a closing question, shut up! And I always hated that. Not because the point was wrong, the attitude was wrong. When you ask a question that expects a buying decision or some kind of a decision, you sit back quietly and wait for them out of respect. You've got to respect their taking the time to think through what their decision really is. Does that fit with what your experience is?
It does, and I'm glad you said that. It is a huge matter of respect, but it's also a matter of that being an opportunity where if there are objections, you'll hear objections, but even more than that, it can potentially get you information, more
Yes.
information regarding what, John said, you've got a superficial challenge that they put in front of you as the test. But this is an opportunity for them to give you an idea of what a real challenge might be that they may be needing help with, that you can address with them and for them. And it may be that question, that closing question, actually ends up in more of a conversation that leads you to ask, again, some deeper questions. So is that what you're talking about when you talk about the cycle? Is it?
Yes.
Tell us a little
Yes.
bit about that.
Absolutely. Now I realize that I'm not completely prepared because I don't have the graph up here, right? Well, let me see if I can get it. But anyway, there's as you said, there's a cycle. And it starts with prospecting. Here we go. Let me see if I can. I'm going to share my screen for a moment while I talk so that I can show you this.
Okay.
And, okay. Yes, okay, good. This is what's called the relationship selling sales cycle. Now, if you have any experience at all in sales, most of the titles here are going to sound familiar. It starts with prospecting, and then it goes to building the relationship, which is your fact-finding calls, if you will, and to presentation and discussion, proposal, agreement, and sales follow-up. And it may be really small on your screen, so you might not be able to see. Then under agreement, in parentheses, I have the word close. Everybody, relationship selling or otherwise, has to do prospecting. But as you get smarter about prospecting, you get people. And that's what I call the ideal customer profile. And I didn't come up with that term. It's a standard in the sales and marketing industry. But what it means is you're finding people who you know are similar to your best customers. And you're focusing on on the relationship building. When you get to meet people, or when you send something out to them, you're trying to build a relationship. In some sales cycles, situations, that relationship building can be a matter of seconds or a few minutes. And in other cases, it can be many sales calls. So it you know, a lot of things. It's a matter where they're coming to know, like, and trust you. Now, in the presentation, there's less emphasis in a relationship selling sales cycle on doing the presentation where you're trying to put all the weight of closing somebody or convincing somebody on the presentation. In relationship selling, the presentation is focused specifically on what they've said they need and want. And you want to, if you've got one of those Swiss Army knife kind of products and they don't need the corkscrew, don't tell them about the corkscrew, because they don't care about it and it'll only confuse the issue. Now, discussion is what normally is called objections, handling objections. And the reason I bring that up is everybody has issues in this world, and they're going to have issues with your product. That's what you were talking about just a little bit ago, Lynn, about asking questions to find out what their hang-ups are. And they're going to bring them up if you've built a relationship with them. They're going to tell you what they are, but they may not be big issues. And when I first started in sales training, handling objections would be handled like this. Customer says, "Can I get it in red?" And the salesperson comes back and says, "If I can get it in red for you, will you buy it now?" Does that sound familiar? Have you heard that line?
Yes, I have. More than a few times.
And the customer really is just curious in this case. He doesn't care. And it's not going to be a closing question because he doesn't care. He's just curious. What colors does it come in? Maybe there's a color I like better. If you try to close him at that point, he's going to recognize you as being a traditional salesman, that you're not there to serve. You're not there to take care of his needs, but to get the sale. I'm not going to tell you it doesn't work. Of course it works. But it doesn't work for the long term. That's the big thing. Proposal is like any sales cycle. If the customer needs to know what you're offering that he's going to be buying if he makes that decision. The difference, again, is that the proposal needs to be tightly focused to what he's told you he needs and wants. And then I call it the agreement phase, because the whole point here is you're working together to come to an agreement that he wants. That was like the example I told you a few minutes ago about the customer who said, let me tell you what I need to get the purchase order for you. And so that's the agreement phase. And then a lot of sales cycles don't bother with mentioning the sales follow-up. But sales follow-up is possibly as important as any other part of the sales cycle. It includes making sure that they know what they're getting. You can recap that for them. But it means that you're going to follow up with them and let them know the status of their order. If it's being processed, when they can expect delivery, following up to see if there are any problems. And interestingly enough, doing a good sales follow-up actually is the first step in the collection cycle. Because what I found with my clients when I was doing small business consulting is that a lot of the reasons for people not paying their bills is that there's a problem with the order, and they're not going to pay you because it wasn't delivered in the right quantities, or the order's incomplete, or the product isn't working correctly, or something. So if you do a good sales follow-up and you find out if there are any problems, you can resolve the issues and take away the problem with getting paid. How's that fit?
That fits. That actually makes a lot of sense, and I totally agree as far as the importance of the follow-up. It actually may be, well, it is as important as any other part of the cycle. But, you said something, and I want to just go back to that for a moment, because you mentioned that your responses to a prospect's responses to your questions are really part of how they set the expectation of who you are and what you're able to deliver. How do you get the most out of responding? What should your responses from a relationship standpoint look like, so that as well as you're giving them information and responding to their questions, they're seeing you truly as the expert, the person that they can count on, the person that they're garnering this know, like, and trust in, because you know what it is that you're talking about. What do some of those responses look like?
Well, in normal sales training, and it applies here as well, when you're asking questions, they tell you to use open-ended questions. Now, if you're not a professional salesperson, you may never have heard that term. But an open-ended question asks who, what, when, where, why, and how. They're the same points that you use in telling a story or writing an article, making a presentation of any kind. A close-ended question is one that gets answered with yes or no. And close-ended questions kill the conversation. So, like you've been asking open-ended questions, and how do you do this, and what does it look like? So that's part of what we're talking about here. Is you use open-ended questions to invite response. You want to get the conversation going. And sometimes it's very funny, because and back with those answers.
Can you repeat that last part? Didn't get any of that last part of what you were just saying.
And
Not getting it. So your connection is backed up a bit again. So I'm not getting. There you are.
That was an example of using a close-ended question.
Okay. So the whole close-ended question example, we couldn't hear. It wasn't coming through clearly. So you want to repeat that?
I just noticed that it's freezing.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and repeat that real quickly?
Oh. Yes, thanks, Lynn. Okay, the open-ended is to get to explain, but likely, if they didn't explain it, to come back and say, what do you mean? Now, a close-ended question, it has an important role even with relationship selling people, because a close-ended question is what they call a tie-down. It confirms your understanding. So sometimes I've used that when I've explained something, Lynn, and I come back and say, does that make sense to you? Now that's a close-ended question in that it's asking for agreement. But I've found a lot of times if I've got a good relationship and a rapport going, that a closed-ended question will get the answer, but it will act like an open-ended question in that it actually asks and invites the person to respond in more detail. And that's like what you did when you mentioned your commercial real estate experience. And you could relate to the answer.
Cool, great.
How's that?
That is great. And that takes me back to something.
Oh, no.
No, I can still hear you. You're good. You're good. I was saying that was a great answer.
Thank you.
And it takes me back to something that we were talking about earlier that I want to just bring into this as well, and that's about mindset. Someone who's in the selling mode can start off with this thinking of relationship selling and then gradually move back into traditional selling. How do we maintain that mindset that relationship selling is actually going to yield us more?
I will tell you that it's a constant challenge, even for me, because if you're a salesperson of any kind, you know that your job is to get a sale. So it's very, very difficult at times to remember that my first job is to build a relationship for a long-term customer. I want a long-term customer, and that customer is only going to happen if he feels that I truly care about him. I give you an example. I happen to think of restaurants a lot, perhaps because I like food, but also because I like the concept of how restaurants sell. They present things to you and allow you to make a decision. They answer your questions and explain why they think you might like this particular dish over that particular dish based on what you've told them. They offer you dessert. They don't force you to buy dessert, but they try to make it enticing and attractive. You have a problem with something, they answer your question, and sometimes they have to tweak the dish because of your dietary needs, like being gluten-free, for instance. I did get lost on that because I was making the point about restaurants and selling. So I apologize, Lynn. I have to ask where we're at.
We were talking about mindset, and you were relating the restaurant's mindset or philosophy of sales of what they sell versus
Right.
sale of anything else. And I think I
And
know where you were getting to, but go ahead, finish that thought.
thank you. It's a very service-oriented mindset. Okay. And I'll give you here's where I was going with that. I was at a restaurant in Las Vegas when I was on a business trip there. It was a steakhouse, and it was late at night. I was tired. I didn't want to fool around. I ordered my ribeye medium rare, and it came out medium or medium well. I wasn't happy with it, but I decided I was going to eat it anyway and just never come back. My server came and asked how my steak was. And I told her I wasn't happy with it, really, but that was okay. I was going to eat it and not to worry about it. Her manager came back and said, I've already placed the order for a replacement steak, and it'll be right out shortly. Now, I didn't ask for that, but she made a decision that cost them money in the short run. I was so impressed with her service that I went back a minimum of 2 more times and took other people with me. So that one steak that she replaced cost her a little bit of money then, but it netted a whole lot more profit in the long run. And that's part of this mindset. It's very hard to give up an immediate sale or to give up immediate profit. But I've heard stories from customers time and again telling me how that kind of a decision solidified their relationship and their sense of loyalty to that salesperson.
That's the relationship building process, right? Where
Yes.
you do some things that may be unexpected and, above and beyond, and, the graciousness that some things can be done under that allows people to really feel like you are attempting to build a relationship with them, a good relationship. You care. And I love the way you said that a
That's
little
it.
bit ago. Showing, how did you put it? Caring versus closing, relating that closing to even asking those closed end questions when you show by your responses that you care about them and about what it is that they're asking for and what it is that you can deliver. That's relationship building. And that's what has people to call you back, to bring you back to do more work. And um, you can't tell a lot of these things out of a presentation. You can only from live interaction. And you were talking about, the number of times that you may have to connect with someone. A lot of people are thinking, again, going back to this mindset thing, I want to hurry up and close the deal. I want to hurry up and get to the point where I can, record the dollars on the bottom line. But when you're in the mindset of relationship building and relationship selling, what should be the thought? And I'm totally, Stephen Covey, think with the end in mind, do with the end in mind. But what should you be thinking about that end result? John, can you hear me? John, can you hear me? You're gonna make me have to answer my own question.
I
What?
can. Finally, I can hear you.
There you go.
It was fun watching you when I couldn't hear a thing.
Did you hear the
This
question?
rebroadcast just to hear what all wonderful you're hearing.
Did you hear the
No,
question?
I'm sorry I didn't.
Okay. Well, let me repeat the question in short, and that is, we're talking about relationship building and relationship selling with mindset in mind, especially in sales, people are taught, set your nut, know what it is that you're going towards, know, that this is a deal, this is one of however many deals, and that's the typical sales thinking. When
Right.
you're thinking relationship and relationship building, especially knowing that you may have to be in contact with this person more than once, several times, what should your thinking be? What should your mindset be about the deal and the possibilities of the deal?
Well, I've found that you need to be thinking in terms of how can I be of service. Okay? And now, to anybody listening, it's very obvious we're talking business-to-business kind of sales here, or big-ticket sales, as opposed to selling a screwdriver in the hardware store. So,
Counter type things, yes.
yeah, I mean, the relationship is still important there, but it happens on a different scale, shall we say. So the point in sales that is very common, sales and marketing, is that it takes 7 to 12 touches before a customer is ready to buy. If this is the first time you've called on them and the first time you've proposed a solution, unless you happen to be a plumber and their toilet just stopped up and you happen to hit it at just that right moment, odds are they're not going to make an immediate decision. And if you're doing business-to-business sales, there are probably other people that are going to be involved in the decision-making process, or other factors that you have to uncover and find out. Like one of the things that you have to find out is who else is involved in making this decision. Because you have to understand what everybody's thought process is and what's important to them when they're making a decision. So you go into it knowing that you are going to have more than one contact normally. And I will tell you that every now and then you get a bluebird, as they call it, and you walk in at the right time, at the right moment, and you've got the right solution, and they know it. And maybe they just had a friend tell them that if you're going to deal with commercial real estate, the person to go to is Lynn Hawkins because you can trust her. Okay? And you walk in at the right moment, and they need you. That happens. But don't bank on it. Okay? You've got to plan for the process to go the normal cycle. So the way you find in the process, in your first meeting, your first rapport building or relationship building meeting, you find out that they've got a particular issue and they haven't figured out how to handle it. It's not exactly relevant. It's not key to your sale because it's not your product that's going to solve it. But they're not going to go forward until they get an answer. Or maybe it's something that's going to bug them and interrupt. So when you go back to your office, you go and find the answer for them to that issue. And then you email them, or you call them, or you send them a link, or you send them the magazine, or whatever it takes to show them that, number one, you are listening, and number two, you really care about them and their problems, their issues. So that little extra effort locks you in a big way. I talked about this once with a client, and I was explaining to them about asking questions and to make sure they probe deep and ask deep questions. And the salesman there said that he had been a product manager at another company, and he had a salesman he really liked working with, but he needed a product that man did not have. And when he brought that up, the other salesman said, or the salesman told him, he says, I can't deliver that to you. You're going to have to go get it from ABC company. And the salesman my salesman, when he was the product manager, he did everything he could think of to try and use one of this salesman's products because he trusted and liked the guy that much. In the end, he did have to go to ABC product and get that. But he went back to the original salesman time and time again because that guy cared for his customer and for the long-term relationship, not the one-time sale.
And that's key. Relationship selling. You really want to think in terms of the long term. And the long term being, you may not get the sale today, it may be next week. The long term being, it may be the direct referral that gives you a sale at a later date in time. But what you've done is established an opportunity to connect and help that client or potential client by referring someone who you knew would or could meet their needs. And then the extra effort thing. I love that you talked about the extra effort. Making that phone call or that e-introduction to bring those two people together that can, the challenge is there, the solution is there, and you know that the potential to work it out is there, and you making that referral. And I think, too, in relationship selling, the one thing that we look at is, if I'm the person with the solution, I'm looking at the relationship going out. I'm serving someone else's needs, but relationship is a two-way street. So for me, it is also in providing my services for someone else. They then have a great opportunity to bring back to me their friends and referrals and, high commendations about the work that I've done, making that relationship a very reciprocal relationship. And that's what I love about just the whole concept of relationship selling. Relationship selling is built on relationship marketing. And John, that's one of the things that I wanted to ask you about as well. Relationship marketing happens in what stages of your selling? And I know that sounds like a trick question, and it is sort of, because most people think about relationship marketing as, you're solidifying the relationship. You've made the connection. You're not trying to sell them anything, but you are marketing your brand. You are providing awareness for what it is that you provide. You don't know yet that much about their challenges. But once you're in the sales cycle, is there another opportunity to do some relationship marketing? Can you hear me, John? John, can you hear me?
Lynn, would you repeat that? Because I finally got audio back with you.
Okay. Well, I was just explaining.
About the sales cycle?
It's sort of. I was just explaining about
I think
how
I can. Yes.
Relationship marketing.
There, yes.
How relationship marketing plays into the sales cycle. And I was asking you to kind of give us some information, your perspective on, once you start the sales cycle, is the marketing over, or is there more relationship marketing to be done? Did you hear me then?
Well, again, yes, I did. We were talking a little bit ago about 7 touches. I used to use the term impressions, but in the internet marketing world, impressions means that you had an ad in the magazine and they had the opportunity to see it because they picked up the magazine. A touch means that they actually saw something you wrote or your ad, or they heard you on an interview, or they talked to you on the phone, or had an email from you. There was an actual contact where they recognized that they were in touch, or that they'd made contact with you. So if it's going to take 7 to 12 touches before a customer typically is ready to buy, that means that your marketing needs to continue all the way through. Now, it may be inviting them to sit in on a Google Hangout like we're doing, and they can listen to our viewpoints expressed. Or it could be sending them a link to somebody else's presentation on a related topic that's important to them. I had a customer one time suggest to me, actually it was the director for the EDS in El Paso, and he said, he wanted advice from his salespeople. The problem was I knew nothing about manufacturing, and so I was at a loss as to be able to help him, but I recognized the value of what he was saying. I could have created an even stronger relationship if I could have come in and told him about some new techniques I'd read about or seen on a TED Talk or something like that, or anything I could have done to help them out. And that would cement that relationship even stronger. In that case, I wasn't able to follow through because I didn't have the expertise. But hopefully you do.
I love that, because that goes to support your earlier comment about going the extra mile and, going back to do the research, to give that potential client some leads and avenues towards getting resolved for whatever that issue is, even if it's something that you may not be able to directly help them with. And I love the conversation around the reputation selling, because it is the next stage after marketing that also includes marketing as you're in the sales cycle. John, thanks for joining us today and sharing all this great information. I know that you actually have a couple more things. One being, I've got one last question for you, but I know that you brought to our audience a major, major gift. And I'd love for you to tell our audience what that gift is and how they can obtain it.
Thank you, Lynn. I have what I call an e-course. It has an e-book and 9 lessons that your listeners can opt in for and sign up for. The link to it is askjra.com/BIZ Info. And if they could go there and sign up for that, they'll get this course. And there will be additional things that I'm going to be adding to that course, and additional articles. So it's all focused with the idea in mind of relationship selling and relationship marketing. And there'll be other things on building a business that leads to a sense of personal fulfillment and personal satisfaction. Because I believe in relationship selling, one of the big benefits of relationship selling, of course, is long-term relationships and long-term customers. But more importantly, from your personal values, it's that you've built a relationship and you enjoy helping this customer. There's a sense of satisfaction and pleasure that comes from that is over and above your commission check or your profits to your business. And I know, Lynn, that one of the things that's very important to you is helping people and empowering people. And relationship selling, I don't care what role you have in life, you're selling somebody on something. If look at it as persuading people to do something that you would like to see them do. If you've got a nonprofit, it's getting people to donate time or money to your nonprofit. If, like yourself, Lynn, you're getting other authors together to put out a really fantastic book on empowerment, you need to find the right authors and be persuasive enough of this opportunity to get them to contribute their time and their writing, and then to help promote the book.
Yes. Yes, and it was an endeavor of relationship marketing that has grown to being into the sales cycle with the production of the book and going to bestseller. But I have to tell you that it was my lessons in relationship selling and relationship marketing, relationship building, and leadership development that really helped to move this forward. And if you're an entrepreneur, you are responsible for your business's growth and sustenance. And one of the ways that you can better guarantee that is by knowing how to do relationship selling and how to do relationship marketing, how to get those referrals, how to make those referrals because of relationships that you've established. And today, our guest, John Aberle, entrepreneur, speaker, coach, sales and marketing trainer, has been with us to share some of those ideas, some of those techniques, and information regarding the sales cycle with you so that you could better understand how to make this work for yourself. And as we're closing our show today, I want to ask John one more question, and that is a question that I ask often. But for the benefit of our audience, John, tell us what it is. If you had one piece of just magnificent information to share with our audience today, what would that be? Can you hear me, John? Can you hear me? Let me repeat that. If you had one thing that you wanted to leave with our audience today, one question that you would want to answer, tell us what that would be. What that answer would be. What that golden nugget would be. John, can you hear me? Well, I don't guess that John can hear me right now, so I am going to say on behalf of both of us that if there was one thing that I had to say about relationship selling, it would be consider the client, consider the relationship first, because you never know. This client may not be that sale for you, but it may be the link to what really takes your business to another level. That one connection that this connection could provide for you and just take your business to another level. One of my mentors said many years ago, you are one person from the biggest business that you have seen in your business. So treat every potential client like they are either that person or that one step to the next person. And that's how you want to think about building relationships, sustaining, nurturing relationships, sustaining relationships to build bigger business. So thank you, everyone, for joining us for our show today. Thank you, John, for being our guest. I want to make sure that you know that the BIZ Info Zone shows happen every Thursday, live or recorded, you'll know. And we're here to serve the savvy social entrepreneur with information, tools, and strategies to help you to empower you to express your passion, plan your next moves, and increase your profits. We want you to live in abundance and prosperity in your business and in your life, and that's what we're doing here in the zone, the BIZ Info Zone. So thanks for joining us today. Have a great day. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll see you on the next show. Bye.
Thanks, Lynn.
You're welcome, John. Thank you.